Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch will go down as two of the greatest drivers in NASCAR Cup Series history. In addition to their on-track accomplishments, both have also become known for being outspoken and saying what's on their mind, not concerned about repercussions and who they might upset. This week, before the third race of the season at Phoenix, each driver had some thoughts, and it was a familiar target: NASCAR. Kyle Busch has never been one to shy away from sharing what's on his mind. Other drivers, fans, and NASCAR have all been in his crosshairs at some point in the two-time champion's career. Last year, early in the season, Rowdy made it clear that he wasn't a fan of NASCAR's limited practice schedule.
Even if you get 15 minutes of practice and you qualify terrible, you can't take it to the garage and strip it apart and fix it, like you got what you got. So, I don't know. I think we're wasting a set of tires and gas with as short as it is, and then not being able to work on it. Try what to better for the next day. You rebuild your car and you go to the tail of the field and you start the race wherever you start the race after rebuilding it overnight. So, but that's not the system we're in. That's not the sandbox we got. So, I'm in fantasy land.
Kevin Harvick hasn't always been as vocal as his younger counterpart, but that's changed in the last couple of years around the introduction of the next-gen car. The Stewart-Haas racing driver, along with Denny Hamlin, was vocal in 2021 about safety concerns long before the car ever made its debut.
Yeah, the only thing, I think, as we sat in the drivers' meeting that NASCAR had with us to show us everything, I think that the most frustrating part of the whole process is the fact that the safety piece to the drivers and the conversation with the drivers, which was asked for by the drivers, was had at the very end of everything. And I think as you look at that, I think it's just I think the guys driving the cars are owed at least the respect enough to at least be a part of the process of what's going on. But I think it's that and the racetrack, and I think everybody's a little bit frustrated with just how all that's been handled.
Last year, Harvick's frustration with the car grew as the issues cropped up throughout the season. So did his voice.
We just keep letting cars burn up, letting people crash into stuff, get hurt. Like, we don't fix anything. Now we just riding around out there and the car catches on fire, so just hurts.
Your attitude at this point, obviously, you've been frustrated anyway, but now it affects your race.
Yeah, well, they don't care. It's cheaper to not fix it.
That was then, this is now. Except it appears the more things change, the more they stay the same. Before this weekend's race at Phoenix, Busch visited with the media. This time around, practice wasn't the topic of conversation, but instead, NASCAR extending the length of the restart zone. Unsurprisingly, the Richard Childress Racing driver didn't sugarcoat what he thought about it.
Let's go.
No, I think all it's done is cause that wreck at California. So, in my opinion, it's done nothing different, nothing on the positive end. It's only added a negative end to it because at California, Joey was just maintaining his speed and everybody was gaining, closing up their gaps because they all try to lay back and then time the run. And so he just waited for everybody to run into everybody and then went at the end of the zone. And so the bigger you make that zone, the more anticipation everybody has and the more accordion effect you get. So I knew that going in, and I was not a proponent of lengthening the zone, but nobody tends to listen to me a whole lot.
Interestingly, this past offseason, NASCAR President Steve Phelps told The Athletic that he does listen to the drivers and admitted Harvick provided him with the best feedback in 2022. It was probably Kevin Harvick, Phelps said. Kevin gave me his opinion about where the broader driver core is. That was really helpful to hear from me. He's taken on a more active role and kind of a mentor role, which I think is needed. With that in mind, Phelps no doubt heard what the 2014 Cup Series champion had to say about the wet weather package a couple of times this weekend in Phoenix. The first came after practice.
But the good news is they slide around so much that you've got options up and down the racetrack. So I like that, and having to manage the throttle pedal and the brake pedal and where you're at on the racetrack, it leaves that gives you some options. So the lap times slow down, and ours hung on pretty good. Looks silly with mud flaps and a windshield wiper on it, but other than that, everything's fine.
Harvick then expressed his thoughts again during his work in the Xfinity Series broadcast booth.
You know, we got a wet weather package now, and any track a mile or less, with the exception of Dover and Bristol, you're going to have the setup in the car so you can race or at least run in the wet. So that's why you see the wiper. He refers to the red light that you would have on the back of the car to indicate where everybody is visually for someone racing in front of you. So that's what he's talking about in reference to the red light.
Well, I hope I'm watching the first time all that happens.
So you hope it doesn't happen this year, huh?
Yeah.
Me too.
I don't really know where else to go with that, Adam. I guess his windshield wiper looks good.
Well,
mud flaps.
You can wean yourself off of the political correctness as we go throughout the year, right?
I think so.
You'll find out next week in the inspection line.
Harvick's right. The mud flaps and windshield wiper unquestionably look strange. They will take some getting used to seeing, but to NASCAR's credit, their inclusion is only to allow for competition to continue in the case of wet conditions. For years, even the slightest bit of moisture has prevented that from happening. Like Harvick, most fans won't initially like these new additions because, at first glance, they do look out of place, but in the end, and more importantly, they serve a specific purpose and are an overall net positive, or just the opposite of what Kyle Busch thinks about the extended restart zone.